I never thought I'd make it this far in life, but here I am, Audrey, 28 years old and finally living my dream. Well, sort of. The apartment I just bought still needs some work, and the mortgage payments make me wince every month, but it's mine. All mine. After 6 years of hustling in real estate, I finally have something to show for it. Getting here wasn't easy. I remember those early days after getting my license, when I had to juggle 2 jobs just to make ends meet. During the day, I'd show properties to potential buyers, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Then I'd rush to my evening shift as a manager at some corporate office, doing mindless paperwork until my eyes burned. But I kept at it, building my client base one sale at a time. Sometimes, when I'm alone in my new place, I wish Dad could see me now. He always believed in me, always said I'd make something of myself. But he never got the chance to see it happen. He passed away when I was 18, right in the middle of my first year of college. That's when everything changed, and not just because of losing him. Mom remarried within a year. Tom seemed nice enough at first, but he came with baggage, 2 kids, Sarah and Mike, who were 15 and 14 at the time. I tried to be understanding. Really, I did. Mom deserved to be happy after losing Dad. But Tom, he had other ideas about how things should be. This place needs updating, he declared one day, barely 3 months after moving in. I came home from college for the weekend to find him painting over the walls Dad and I had decorated together. All of Dad's photos were gone, packed away somewhere I couldn't find them. "Where are Dad's pictures?" I asked Mom that evening, trying to keep my voice steady. She barely looked up from her magazine. "Oh, honey, Tom thought it might be uncomfortable. You understand, right? We need to move forward." But it wasn't just the photos. My old room, the one I'd grown up in, became Sarah and Mike's game room. They installed a computer and even a slot machine, of all things. My space, my memories, replaced by beeping machines and their constant laughter. "You can use the guest room when you visit," Mom said brightly, as if she was doing me a favor. The guest room was barely big enough for a bed and a small table. But what could I say? I was just the visiting daughter now. Sarah and Mike made it clear they didn't want me around. Every time I came home from college, there'd be some new accident, my old stuffed animals found in the trash, my high school yearbooks mysteriously water damaged, my name somehow erased from all the family photos on the walls. Life settled into a pattern after that. I finished college, started my career, and tried to maintain some kind of relationship with Mom. Our phone calls became shorter and less frequent, but I still tried. Every few weeks, I'd visit, enduring the cramped guest room and the barely concealed hostility from my step-siblings. "Look who finally remembered we exist," Sarah would say, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. She was 25 now, still living at home, still treating me like an unwanted houseguest. Mike, at 24, wasn't much better. He'd make snide comments about my job, my clothes, my life, anything he could use as ammunition. And Tom? He'd sit there with that smug smile, occasionally throwing in his own little digs. "Real estate, huh," he'd say during dinner. "Must be nice, playing house all day. Some of us have real jobs to do." Mom would just sit there, saying nothing, pretending not to notice the tension. It was like she'd disappeared into their family completely, leaving no room for me. I tried to brush it off, to rise above it. I focused on my career, on building my own life. My client list grew, my commission checks got bigger, and slowly but surely, I started making a name for myself in the local real estate market. But then came that dinner. That awful, final straw dinner. Sarah was in rare form that night, taking shots at everything from my hair to my choice of wine. I sat there, gritting my teeth, until she went too far. "Must be nice," she sneered, "having mommy's connections to help you get started in real estate. Some of us actually have to work for a living." Something inside me snapped. 10 years of biting my tongue, of taking their abuse, came pouring out. "Work for a living?" I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. That's rich coming from someone who's pushing 30 and still living off her daddy's paycheck. When was the last time you even looked for a job? The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's face crumpled, and she ran from the table in tears. Tom stood up, his face red with anger. "You nasty little brat," he spat. "How dare you speak to my daughter that way?" I turned to Mom, hoping, maybe foolishly, that she'd finally stand up for me. Instead, she shook her head, disappointment written all over her face. "I can't believe you'd say something so cruel, Audrey. That's not how I raised you." That's when I realized nothing would ever change. Mom would always choose them over me, always. I left Mom's house that night with tears streaming down my face, but they weren't sad tears, they were angry ones. For the first time in my life, I felt completely done. No more trying to please everyone. No more walking on eggshells. No more pretending this was normal. The next morning, my phone was flooded with messages from Mom's side of the family, all telling me how horrible I was for hurting Sarah's feelings. None of them mentioned how she'd been treating me for years. None of them seemed to care about my feelings at all. "You've really done it this time," Mom texted. "I don't know what's gotten into you, but until you apologize to Sarah and Tom, I think it's best if you don't come around." I stared at that message for a long time before typing out my response, "Don't worry, I won't." The weeks that followed were surprisingly peaceful. I threw myself into my work, closing deal after deal. My clients loved me, and my commission check showed it. I started looking at new cars, not because I needed to show off, but because I'd always wanted one particular model. The day I drove my Mercedes off the lot, I felt like a different person. More confident. More successful, more me. I couldn't resist taking a few photos and posting them online. The likes and comments poured in, but I wasn't prepared for what happened next. My phone rang, Mom's name flashed on the screen. After 3 months of silence, she was suddenly calling me. I let it go to voicemail at first, but she called again. And again. Finally, I picked up. "Hello? Audrey, sweetheart," her voice was syrupy sweet. "I've been thinking about you so much lately. We really need to fix this situation. Why don't you come over for dinner tomorrow night?" I almost laughed out loud. 3 months of silence, and now, right after I posted photos of my new Mercedes, she wanted to fix things? "I'm not sure that's a good idea, Mom." "Please, honey, I've talked to Tom and the kids. They feel terrible about everything. We all want to make things right." I should have said no. I should have seen through it. But some part of me, that stupid, hopeful part that never seemed to learn, wanted to believe her. The next evening, I pulled up to my old house in my new car. Tom was standing in the driveway, and I swear his eyes nearly popped out of his head when he saw the Mercedes. Sarah and Mike appeared in the doorway, both wearing expressions I'd never seen before, something between respect and calculation. "Look who's here," Mom rushed out to hug me. "Oh, sweetheart, we've missed you so much." The dinner was surreal. Tom complimented my career choices, Sarah asked about my clients with seemingly genuine interest, Mike even pulled out my chair for me. I felt like I'd stepped into some parallel universe where they actually liked me. Between courses, Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. "I had a long talk with them," she whispered, squeezing my arm. "They realize how wrong they've been. They want to start fresh." I wanted to believe her, God, how I wanted to believe her. And for a while, it seemed real. I started visiting more often. The cruel jokes stopped. The snide comments disappeared. They were all suddenly interested in my life, my work, my success. But then I started noticing patterns. Every visit, without fail, the conversation would turn to their living situation. It started subtly at first. "This old house just isn't what it used to be," Tom would sigh, glancing meaningfully at me. "The roof leaked again last week," Mom would add. "And the heating bills are getting ridiculous." Sarah and Mike would chime in with their own complaints: not enough bathrooms, too little storage space, outdated everything. Each time, they'd look at me expectantly, waiting for something. I tried to change the subject whenever this happened, but they grew more persistent. One evening, as I was leaving, Mom followed me to my car. "You know, sweetie," she said, running her hand along the Mercedes hood, "you're doing so well now. It must be wonderful to have such a comfortable life." The way she emphasized comfortable made my skin crawl. I was starting to understand why they'd suddenly become so nice to me, but I pushed the thought away. They were family, after all, maybe they really had changed. Then Mom dropped the bomb about her upcoming 55th birthday. She mentioned it casually over coffee, but there was nothing casual about the way everyone stared at me. "It's quite a milestone," she said. "I've been thinking about how to celebrate it properly." I took the bait. "Don't worry about planning anything, Mom, I'll take care of everything." The look that passed between her and Tom should have warned me. The way Sarah and Mike suddenly became extremely interested in their phones should have set off alarm bells. But I was still trying so hard to believe in this new version of our family that I ignored all the signs. I decided to go all out, a party at my friend Rachel's upscale restaurant in the city center, followed by a surprise trip to Hawaii for the whole family. The thought of paying for Tom, Sarah, and Mike to vacation made me queasy, but I told myself it was worth it to make Mom happy. Planning Mom's birthday celebration became my top priority. I called Rachel right away. "I want everything to be perfect," I told her. "Money's not an issue." Rachel's excitement was contagious. "Leave it to me, honey. I'll give you my friends and family discount, but trust me, this will be an event to remember." If only she knew how right she would be. When Mom sent me her guest list, my heart sank a little. Out of 30 people, 25 were Tom's relatives. I scrolled through the names, looking for familiar ones from Dad's side of the family. Aunt Susan, who used to babysit me. Not there. Uncle Jack, who taught me to ride a bike. Missing. Cousin Emma, who was like a sister to me growing up. Nowhere to be found. I added them to the list without telling Mom. They deserved to be there, even if she had forgotten about them. When I called Aunt Susan to invite her, she went quiet for a moment. "Are you sure, sweetie?" she asked. "Last time I saw your mother, she made it pretty clear we weren't welcome anymore." "I'm sure," I said firmly, "you're my family too." The next week, I went to Mom's house to discuss the party details. Sarah cornered me as soon as I walked in. "So," she said, trying to sound casual but failing miserably, "the restaurant party is your gift to Mom?" I noticed Mom shoot her a warning look, but I chose to ignore it. "That's part of it," I replied. "I have something else planned too, a surprise." The way they all perked up at the word surprise should have been my first clue. Tom and Mom exchanged glances, and Mike suddenly became very interested in the conversation. "A surprise?" Mom leaned forward. "What kind of surprise, sweetheart?" I just smiled and shook my head. "You'll have to wait and see." The next hour was excruciating. They took turns trying to pump me for information, all while dropping increasingly obvious hints about houses. Tom gave me a grand tour of every minor repair needed in the house. Mom sighed dramatically about how cramped everything was. Sarah and Mike tag-teamed with complaints about sharing a bathroom. "You know, Audrey," Tom said, gesturing at a water stain on the ceiling, "with your expertise in real estate, you must know all about good housing opportunities." I nodded noncommittally. "The market's pretty active right now. And successful agents like you must have all sorts of connections," Mom added, giving me a meaningful look. I pretended not to understand what they were getting at. "I do have a good network, yes. It helps with sales." "Sales," Sarah muttered under her breath, "right." The evening dragged on like this, with them circling closer and closer to what they really wanted. I kept deflecting, telling myself it would all be worth it when they saw the Hawaii surprise. Maybe then they'd realize that I really did care about family, just not in the way they expected. The night of Mom's birthday party arrived, and Rachel had outdone herself. The restaurant looked magical, with soft lighting, elegant flower arrangements, and perfectly set tables. I arrived early to make sure everything was perfect, including the box containing the Hawaii surprise, first-class plane tickets and resort reservations for the whole family. Dad's relatives arrived first. Aunt Susan hugged me tight and whispered, "You've grown into such a wonderful woman. Your father would be so proud." I blinked back tears. "Thanks, Aunt Susan, I'm really glad you're here." Tom's family showed up in a noisy group, filling the restaurant with loud laughter and louder opinions. They claimed the best tables, practically pushing Dad's relatives to the periphery. I watched this happening but bit my tongue. Tonight was supposed to be about family healing, not old grievances. Mom, Tom, Sarah, and Mike arrived fashionably late. Mom looked beautiful in a new dress, but there was something off about her expression when she surveyed the room, especially when she spotted Dad's family. "What are they doing here?" she hissed at me as I hugged her. "Their family, Mom, they wanted to celebrate with you." She gave me a look I couldn't quite read, but before she could say anything, Tom's sister Janet started the toasts. "To my wonderful brother Tom," Janet raised her glass, "who saved this family and gave them a real man to depend on." I watched Dad's relatives stiffen at these words. Uncle Jack looked like he wanted to say something, but Aunt Susan touched his arm, shaking her head slightly. The toasts continued in this vein, each of Tom's relatives taking turns praising him and his children, talking about what a perfect family they'd become. Mom beamed with pride while I felt increasingly sick to my stomach. Finally, it was my turn. I stood up, holding the beautifully wrapped box containing the Hawaii surprise. "Mom," I started, my voice shaking slightly, "you've always talked about wanting to see the world, about having adventures. So for your birthday, I wanted to give you something special." I handed her the box. She took it with an odd expression, not excitement, but something more like suspicion. As she unwrapped it, the room went quiet. Mom stared at the plane tickets and resort brochures, her face growing darker by the second. "What is this supposed to be?" It's a family vacation," I explained, confused by her reaction. "First-class tickets to Hawaii, 2 weeks at a 5-star resort, all expenses paid. For all of you." The explosion that followed was unlike anything I could have imagined. "A vacation?" Mom's voice was ice cold. "You think we want a vacation?" Tom stood up, his face red with anger. "This is what you call a birthday present? After all our hints?" "Hints," I repeated, although I was starting to understand with horrible clarity. Sarah jumped up next. "We've been telling you for months what Mom really wanted. A house. She wanted a house, you stupid, selfish witch." The restaurant went silent. Rachel, standing near the bar, looked on in horror. "A house?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You expected me to buy you a house?" "We thought you understood," Mom said, her voice dripping with disappointment. "All those conversations about our living situation, how could you be so dense?" I looked around the room. Tom's relatives were nodding in agreement, while Dad's family sat in shocked silence. "I'm a real estate agent," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I sell houses, I don't give them away for free. This trip cost me a fortune as it is." "A fortune?" Tom scoffed. "Please, we've seen your car. We know you can afford more than some cheap vacation." That's when I lost it. I turned to Rachel and said loudly, "Could you please have security escort these people out?" "You can't do this," Mom shrieked as 2 security guards approached. "It's my birthday party." I grabbed the box of tickets from her hands. "Not anymore, it's not, and you don't deserve any of it." What followed was chaos. Tom's family hurled insults as they were let out. Sarah screamed about how I'd always been jealous of their perfect family. Mike called me every name he could think of. Mom just stood there, shaking her head in disgust. After they left, the restaurant was eerily quiet. Then Uncle Jack stood up, raised his glass, and said, "I think it's time we remembered the real man of this family." To David Mitchell, a wonderful father who would have been so proud of his daughter. We spent the rest of the evening sharing stories about Dad, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was with my real family again. The 2 weeks following the birthday disaster were surprisingly peaceful. I threw myself into work, showing houses to clients and closing deals as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free from the guilt, the manipulation, and the constant pressure to prove myself to people who would never accept me. My phone was suspiciously quiet. No calls from Mom, no texts from Sarah or Mike, no angry voicemails from Tom. I knew it wouldn't last, but I enjoyed the silence while it lasted. During this time, I grew closer to Dad's side of the family. Aunt Susan invited me over for Sunday dinners, just like when I was little. "You know," she said one evening, as we sat on her porch drinking tea, "your father always worried about Catherine, your mom. He said she needed people to take care of her too much. He was afraid it would hurt you someday." I stared into my tea. He was right, I just wish I'd seen it sooner. The first thing I did after the party was cancel all the Hawaii reservations. I used it to plan a different trip, a week-long Mediterranean cruise for Dad's relatives who had stayed with me that night. They tried to refuse at first, but I insisted. I was in the middle of booking their cruise when my phone rang. Mom's number flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should hear whatever she had to say. "Hello?" I kept my voice neutral. "Audrey," Mom's voice was tight, controlled. No apology, no warmth, just business. "We need to talk about what happened." I waited, but she didn't continue. "What about it?" "Well, first of all, you humiliated us in front of everyone. But we can discuss that another time. Right now, we have a more pressing issue." I could guess where this was going, but I let her continue. "Mike had an accident with the car yesterday. Nothing serious, but the repairs will be expensive. Since you're doing so well, we thought." I cut her off with a laugh. I couldn't help it. The sheer audacity was almost impressive. "Let me get this straight," I said. "You're calling me, not to apologize for what happened at your birthday, but to ask for money? Don't be dramatic, Audrey, family helps family. And speaking of help, since you canceled that Hawaii trip, you could at least give us the money you would have spent on it. It's only fair." I sat in my home office, phone pressed to my ear, listening to my mother's demands with a strange sense of clarity. Everything suddenly made sense, all the years of manipulation, the sudden kindness after seeing my success, the birthday disaster. It had never been about family. It had always been about what they could get from me. "Mom," I said quietly, cutting off her monologue about family obligations, "I did use that money. I'm sending Dad's family on a Mediterranean cruise." The silence on the other end was deafening. When she finally spoke, her voice was trembling with rage. "How dare you? Those people aren't even your real family anymore. I'm your mother, we're your family." "No," I replied, my voice steady. "You haven't been my family since the day you chose Tom and his kids over me. You stood by while they took over my childhood home, while they erased every trace of Dad, while they treated me like an unwanted guest. You watched them bully and belittle me for years, and you did nothing." "That's not true, I always loved you." "Love isn't enough, Mom. You didn't protect me. You didn't stand up for me. You let them push me out of my own family, and now you only want me around because you think I can buy you things. After everything I've done for you." "What exactly have you done for me?" I asked. "Since Dad died, what have you actually done to help me or support me?" "I put myself through college, I built my career on my own, I bought my own home. The only time you show any interest in my life is when you want something from me." She started crying then, but I'd seen this performance too many times before. "I'm your mother. You can't just abandon me." "I'm not abandoning you, Mom. I'm finally setting myself free. I don't wish you any harm, but I can't be part of your life anymore. You, Tom, Sarah, Mike, you're not my responsibility. Fix your own problems. Live your own lives. Just leave me out of it." I hung up the phone and blocked their numbers, all of them. Then I sat there for a long time, looking at the photos on my desk. There was one of Dad and me at my high school graduation, both of us grinning at the camera. Another of Aunt Susan and Uncle Jack at Christmas last year. And a new one from the night of Mom's birthday party, me surrounded by Dad's family, all of us raising our glasses in memory of him. These were my people. This was my real family. The next day, I went to work as usual. I showed houses to clients, negotiated deals, and planned the Mediterranean cruise for my family. Life went on, but it was different now. Better. Lighter. Sometimes I think about Mom and wonder if she ever understood what she lost. Not the money or the gifts or the fancy house she wanted, but something far more valuable, a daughter who would have done anything for her if she'd just been a real mother in return. But I don't dwell on it anymore. I've learned that family isn't about blood or obligation or keeping up appearances. It's about love, support, and acceptance. It's about people who stand by you without expecting anything in return. It's about being there for each other, not because you have to, but because you want to.